Hi, this is Janine Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory. Today we have on our show Jenna McToon. Jenna is a survivor of a lockdown residential program called Agape. Agape means unconditional love from God, and in this place, it is nothing of the sort. It is dark. It is nothing of God in this camp. It's a living hell. Jenna is an activist. She participated in the Right to Rights rally and protested in front of the very school that tortured her. She gave a speech at the rally, and she's bravely here to tell her story of what really goes on behind closed doors. Please welcome to the show, Jenna McToon. Welcome to the show, Jenna. Jenna, it's so nice to have you on the show. Thank you for being on Pieces of Victory and telling your story about what happened to you in an unlicensed residential program called Agape located in Missouri. Do you want to start from the beginning on how it all started? How did your parents end up locking you into this all-boys camp for kids?
So I was just having like a really hard time emotionally, and so I was doing drugs, and I was just acting out in a way that was like really scaring my parents. There were some interventions being suggested at home, but I was about to get put on probation, and I was about to do like something where you go to therapy like every day, and like different types of therapy and like group therapy and stuff.
But nothing like juvenile hall or anything like that. It was just for
no, I was about to get put on probation.
Okay.
For just stuff to do with drugs. But I had a way better experience like later on in my life with that was all the stuff that was going on when my parents sent me to Agape. But later on in my adolescence, when I was like 16, I had a way better experience with probation and the juvenile courts than I did Agape.
Okay, so what you're saying is when you were 16 years old, you had a better experience in a juvenile hall?
Like on probation, like with the juvenile courts over a couple years of being on probation. That was much better. That would have been a much better
situation.
Yes, almost anything would have been better, really.
What is exactly probation? Are you prohibited? Do you have a curfew? What goes on? Are you limited to
like you have like a cop that's he's like your personal probation officer. He's your personal cop. And there's a bunch of terms and conditions that they set for you that the judge approves of when you get sentenced for a crime. And then you have to take drug tests randomly, and they just check you out with anything. And anytime you run into the police, you have to report it to them. And you lose your right to like say no when a cop asks to like search your car or something. You have to, like, on probation, like, you can't say no, really. And like, you can't carry weapons. Like, there's just all kinds of restrictions. And if they want to, they can put you in jail for something, like, really easily. But yeah, so basically it sucks. But also, okay, so while I was on probation, I went to jail one time. And then another time I went to a place that it was 5 weeks. And it was like family therapy. And it was just like going to public school with like other kids that were there, and just like living in a house basically with like family therapy, and also well, that in jail were and drug tests were like the main thing that I experienced with probation.
And
but one thing interesting about probation is like I always mention that sometimes is like yeah, not always, but sometimes when people ask me like what's the alternative to like sending your kid off, like I like obviously like to even begin to answer that question you have to like specify something. Well, first of all, like obviously like when you're asking like what's the alternative to child abuse, it's like anything. But when people ask that to even begin to answer it, you would have to specify like what issue specifically is going on. But if it was like a criminal issue, honestly, I think probation in my personal experience with probation, like where I'm from in my county, like that was a way better choice than Agape. Because like for example, I knew somebody at Agape that was there for skipping school. But if you get put on, if you get a kid put on probation for like skipping school, then they can like put an ankle monitor on the kid to where like they have to go to school, or else like a squad car will go and like get them and take them to school, which sounds really bad, but like it's better than sending them somewhere like Agape. Yeah, and it keeps them at home. So
right. So
people think I'm advocating for like putting people in jail, but but in some cases like that, it's like better than Agape, because Agape is like jail.
It's worse than jail, I feel.
Yeah.
That in just a minute, I mean, your human rights are taken away. You have more human rights in jail and in juvenile hall than you do in these places, which you will go into detail about. But what led you to do all these things? Were you trying to escape? Were you having a hard time with something? Or were you just experimenting? Were you just self-medicating? What was going on?
I don't know. I guess I was having a hard time just growing up, and like my parents getting divorced, and like just getting into drugs at too young of an age. Like my somebody close to me gave me drugs when I was like smoked marijuana with me when I was like 12, and there were just some times at home that like my dad took like disciplining me way too far, or disciplined me when he was angry, and like took it way too far and hurt me.
No.
So
you would say that you were just in an sounds like an abusive home, and you were trying to escape.
yeah, it wasn't like an everyday thing. It was like, I don't know. It was like semi frequently.
Did you feel like you weren't loved by your family, or just
No, that's another thing about it. It's like I feel like my parents really loved me and like tried their best, and like really everything that happened, I think, except for sending me to Agape, is like mostly forgivable. But so like to specify to you, like it was just stuff like my dad one time when I told my parents that I was like depressed and like was having like suicidal thoughts when I was like 14, my dad told my mom to like wait till he got home before she took me anywhere. And he came home and he like sat on my chest on the couch and like slapped me back and forth like a lot. Yeah, it was pretty messed up.
How can that help a child who is suicidal? That's awful, actually. That's not right at all.
Yeah, and like one time at the same age,
If anything, that would make a child even more suicidal.
Yeah. It's not a good way to react to it.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, so like stuff like that.
So not very good parenting. I mean, that's putting it lightly.
Not
It's abusive to me. That's abuse right there.
yeah, I know.
I think that you know what's normal and what's not, and you would never pass that on to your children. Something just tells me that you know how it feels, and
Yeah.
you have compassion towards other people, but I don't think you'll ever repeat that pattern. Unfortunately, he probably has learned this from his parents, and he's passing it on because that's all he knows. But at the same token, it's not fair that you had to experience and endure that. So you're escaping with drugs. And what is the repercussion to Agape? Did a judge sentence you to? Sometimes judges sentence these children to these boot camps for kids, reform schools. Did a judge?
No, my parents sent me there, and it was because like they said that they wanted to like try something different from the normal like type of therapy, because they said that it like wasn't working. And also like my mom thought that she always uses as a reason, like when we discuss it, she brings up the fact that I was about to be put on probation. And that's why I went into why probation. That's why I went into talking about how probation was like a better experience than Agape, is because my mom always uses like the fact that I was about to be put on probation when I was 14 as like a reason to justify like sending me to Agape. But honestly, I think probation would have been a lot better.
Oh,
I think
sure.
the drug test sort of like maybe made me stop like doing drugs at least for a couple of years, even if it's not like real drug addiction treatment. Like maybe if it just got me to stop doing drugs for a couple of years, that would have been good.
It's a shame. It's a shame, and we're going to get into it in just a second. So, were you kidnapped to Agape, or did they say, "Hey, we're trying something different. Let's go for a ride"? Did you have kidnappers take you, or did mom and dad take you to Agape?
It was still a lot like being kidnapped, because my parents like they tricked me into getting in the car by telling me we're going to Sonic, and then they just like got on the interstate and drove me 4 states away, and then I was locked inside of a building and abused. So I was unwilling. I was unwilling to go, and I told my parents I was unwilling to go. I told my parents that I was unwilling to go, and like they took me anyway, and that was a bad experience. Yeah.
So here you are. You feel betrayed by them. It's too late. Was there a 12-foot fence with barbed wire? We went and protested there, but I did see, there was a gate there and cars were going in.
Yeah.
Was it pretty secluded? Was there any way to escape, or once you get inside the doors, you're on lockdown? How does that work?
So a lot of these places, like, they kind of dress themselves up really nice, and then on the inside they use like tactics that they use like on inmates in high security units. And that's kind of like how Agape is. It looks really nice, and the campus looks really nice, and a lot of the amenities that like the staff and their families mostly use, like those, and the students use, or when I was a student there, we used them some. Those kind of represent something that like get people to like not believe me, because like because like the campus is so nice. It looks, that doesn't know anything about this stuff, maybe it looks like it could be nice on the surface. Like there's no 12-foot barbed wire fence.
Some kind of advertisement of wrestling.
And it seemed like it was just a school.
I thought that was a joke because I've heard testimonies before, but they had some kind of wrestling. It was like a high school where you see, wrestling on such and such date. And it's farther from the truth about what kind of sports there are at this place. It's pretty much a joke, but
Oh yeah. They advertise that there's a lot of activities,
right,
like how you said, but it's like the wrestling camp is only like 1 week or something like that.
exactly.
Yeah,
It was
it,
advertised front like as you're going into the gate, as if you're going into a high school, a normal high school with wrestling and fun activities. But
yeah, it's like a sham. Yeah, the front, it like that's what I'm trying to say. Like a lot of these places, like they're trying to make themselves look like a really nice ranch, or like a fun ranch, or like a summer camp kind of vibe. But but like on the inside, it's ran like a prison, and it's just like a facade.
it's like hell,
Yeah,
and no, your rights are taken away from you. In fact, prison, you would have had more rights. So let's get into they take you. You're unwilling. They tricked you into it. They said they were taking you to Sonic.
yeah. Well, we did go to Sonic, and then I just like never was able to get out of the car. It was a two-door car, and yeah,
Did you question? Wait, we have Sonic. Why aren't we going home?
yeah.
And what did they say?
They told me that I was going to school, and I didn't know how to imagine the place. I was not imagining something so emotionally brutal. I didn't think that it was going to be so emotionally trying. I thought that I was just going to not like it there, like, and want to go home. But I didn't think that it was going to be, like, traumatizing and difficult.
Right, you're thinking therapy. You're thinking,
Yeah.
okay, these people are going to love you, but I'm going to be away from home. They're going to try to fix me. And it was nothing of the sort. So you get in there, your parents say goodbye to you. What happens? You meet the owners of the whoever's running the Agape Boarding School.
They advertise themselves as a therapeutic boarding school, and the use of the word therapeutic is really laughable. We got into the gate, and or we got into the parking lot, and I got out, and it was like it's an intake group. Like the way that they do an intake group is it'll be a staff member, and then it's like 2 or 3 students with them, and 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 I guess I don't know if they do this on every single one, but the admissions director was on mine, and he like talked to me and talked to my parents, and the admissions director is like the trafficker, like the arranger of all of this, and then they take you down into the intake room that has like it's like the padded room, the same one that they use for restraints, the restraint room and timeout room.
Wow.
And yeah, that's where they do intakes. And
And the parents don't think anything weird about that. This is the same room of isolation.
they don't even know. Like right off the bat, I felt like it was not exactly what my parents thought what it was.
And they didn't suspect anything. They didn't question that. They just went along with the program.
They were immediately separated from me as soon as we got there. And
Okay, so the intake is where you're in, but your parents weren't in that intake room. Is that correct?
yeah, the staff member and students took me and separated me from my parents. Like, well, first we all sat and listened to the admissions director, and then they separated me and took me to the intake room.
Did you say anything to your family when you left?
We just said bye to each other, and Yeah, I remember the my parents went on like a tour of the school while they were doing my intake, and then when I finally got finished with that, I went to the dining hall, which is where everybody was, and my parents uh, I saw them walk by a window, and I saw my dad for like a second, and and he saw me too, but he wasn't sure if it was me. I know because he wrote about it in a letter later, and uh, he, but it was just for a second, and he kept walking, and both my parents kept walking with the admissions director.
Did you feel abandoned at this point?
Yeah, somewhat. I felt like it wasn't quite right as soon as I got in there because I could just tell that it was like a facility and like a lockdown like high control facility, like a prison, and I wasn't sure like by what authority these people were running something like a prison. I remember feeling like kind of getting a feeling like that, kind of getting a feeling like I wasn't really in a good environment and like they could do whatever they wanted to me. And I felt like that might have had to do with like why I wasn't allowed to call my parents for 30 days. Like I kind of got a bad feeling right away and kind of felt like they could do stuff to me and get away with it.
Right. So what was the first thing that they did that just really gave you those red flags that you were in an abusive lockdown residential program?
Well,
You on
some
buddy?
of the kids told me that they do stuff like that.
Did they put you on buddy? Meaning following a guide 3 feet behind and you had to listen to everything that they said and that you were being watched for months?
Yeah, so they give you a guide, and like not all guides are horrible, but a lot of the time the guide will just sadistically like persecute the buddy. Persecute is the word that we use for it. Like, yeah. And like just bully them and like give them like push-ups for no reason and stuff like that.
Is that
But my first guide was cool, but then I had a guide that was like pretty horrible and a bully. And there was no way to get away from that.
Would you say the bullying is orchestrated by the staff and the person running the school?
Yeah, because they create an environment that fosters that, and they don't do anything about it. And they put kids in charge of each other that are supposedly like have problems that are bad enough to where they need to be locked up. So how could you not expect something bad to happen? And they I think that they do it to kind of break people down and show people that like unfair things are going to happen there and they're not going to be able to do anything about it.
Would you say that they are delegating the children to do it so they're off the hook? So they don't have the repercussions of abusing children per se?
Well, yeah, they did that. Like there were times that they would let somebody hit somebody if they thought they deserved it, or just like not give somebody very much of a punishment if they felt like they had like a good reason to like beat somebody up, and that was like known. And the one
or anyone running the school physically, spiritually, emotionally abusing children?
There was the one time that there was the mentally challenged kid that like the dean and all the staff were just like completely tired of um like tired of dealing with him. Like he wasn't really being bad, but he was just like having difficulty like keeping up with the program and like understanding like all the implicit rules and stuff like that. And I don't know, just like he would forget stuff like in he had a hard time with like being able to like bring all of his stuff from one room to another and stuff like that. And the staff were just completely tired of dealing with him. And so I saw the dean at the end of like the locker room thing, and like in one like hallway of it, like in one section of it, and he was talking to these kids, and like some kids that he kind of trusted and were like just like some trusted kids that he liked basically, and he kind of was talking to them really quietly, and then it was like three of them, I think. And he called over the mentally challenged kid by name, or he finished talking to the first kids. He finished talking to the other kids first, and then he had them. And then they went into the next section, like behind a wall, but like still like not behind a door, but like just behind a wall, like in the next section of the locker room. And then the dean had the mentally challenged kid go into the same area. He just like he was like go over there, and then I heard like a commotion, like they were beating him up, and then they all came out, and then the vulnerable student had like a shiner and a bloody lip.
Oh my gosh, it's awful.
Yeah.
Awful. So obviously the staff orchestrated that.
Yeah, that was one time that I saw it directly, like, immediately like that.
That's awful. And this is supposed to be a Christian school. They're using the flag. Let's just remind the audience that agape is unconditional love of God, and it's nothing of the stores in this hell camp. And these people are blatantly, using Christianity, and they're hiding behind it, and they're monsters. This is not Christian at all. It's the dark side. And you're going to get into it some more. Did you have to eat everything on your plate? Was it time? Were you force-fed? Did you eat your own vomit while you were in this place? What were meals like?
No, I didn't have to live through any of that. Food was mostly not an issue, except for, okay, so like I felt like they didn't like give us like the best meals like all the time, or like proper nutrition sometimes. But so there were wraps, like if you didn't finish your food, like you could get it wrapped like in plastic and then like have to eat it cold later. And sometimes they would make kids eat it cold before they could have anything else. And that was it really, except for like the Brown Town, like making us eat the peanut butter sandwiches for the same meal every day.
Okay, did you feel at all that you were starving in this place?
No. That's what I'm saying. They fed us enough, and I didn't have to like eat my own vomit or anything.
What did you witness when you were going through the halls, when you were going through school? Were there fights? Were there riots? What was going on a day-to-day basis in this place? Were there put-downs? Could you speak? What was life like in this place?
When I first got there, the rule for the student body was no talking, and in the hallway, when we moved from like one room to another in a group, we had like exit watchers that were like the captains and the 18-year-olds and the staff, and they would basically guard the doors and in the hallway, and we would walk in the hallway in like a line, and they were like really strict about no talking in the hallway, and to go from like one room to another. So organized movement, like very much like prisoners, and and uh,
Prison, aren't you allowed to speak in prison? I thought you were allowed.
some prisons, that's something that some prisons do, is like make it to where nobody's allowed to talk at all.
Okay.
They people talked, but you had to hide it. Like during meals, like we would have to talk to each other, like talk without moving your lips, and and like talk without like making eye contact with the other person, so that you don't get caught, because the person who was watching the student body, there was always staff watching the students, and the person who was watching the student body, he would like give people like jumping jacks for talking, like if they saw you talk to another person at all. And eventually they made it to where a certain shirt color could talk, but the lower shirt colors still couldn't talk, and it could take like a long time, like weeks and weeks, to get to where you could talk in a best case scenario. But
There was a higher level.
yeah, there were fights sometimes, and most of the time the injuries weren't that bad, but sometimes there would be a pretty bad fight, and it mostly just like sucked, like getting picked on by the staff every day, and like getting picked on by other students, because it was like a hostile environment with like a lot of bullying, and that was like the day to day, and I got physically abused that day, like with the mostly like the punishments, I would say, are like where most of the abuse happens. The restraint room, and the restraints, and the like the isolation, and the Browntown boot camp.
Can I ask you a question? Were you transgender at all during this time, or no? Or did they suspect anything? Because I understand in some of these places, they really persecute kids that are either gay, transgender. Did they pick on you for that?
No, I was like mostly in the closet, and I wasn't like it wasn't like really a good environment for like getting like romantically involved with people, so I wasn't like crushing on anybody or anything. And I was like in the closet, so I was like mostly not suspected, and but other people got bullied a lot by the student body, and the staff members let them. Like one time I saw a student getting bullied, and he went to a staff member that he trusted, and said that somebody was bullying him for being gay, and the staff member said, "Is it true?" Like, as in, like, is it true? Like, are you gay? As in, I guess, like he wasn't going to do anything about it if it was true.
Right.
And and also like there were preachers that would come, and sometimes the preachers would just like very enthusiastically like make hate speech against like gay and transgender people.
That's awful. And then just how they persecute them in the name of God and the congregation, which is awful because that's teaching other children to do the same, to repeat that, and to become hateful adults. It's learned behavior, and I feel a lot of that hatred is learned in the church, and it's sad. It really is. It's unfortunate, and sometimes I think people who are followers, they really respect a pastor, minister, no matter what, and will just believe anything that they say or go along with that. And really, that's so anti-Christianity when you think about it, because you're not supposed to judge as a Christian. So it really defeats the purpose. And to me, when you're hating other people, that's not light. That's the dark. So you were in the closet. Did this guy ever come out with it, or did he know enough to keep his mouth shut because he knew there was going to be a repercussion?
He was just like, everybody knew he was gay. Like there were like a few kids that like everybody knew they were gay or suspected it, and they got bullied the worst, really.
That's so sad. But when that person, that staff member that he confided in, flat out asked him if he was, did he just keep quiet about it because he knew better, or what happened?
Yeah, the staff member said, "Is it true?" I think were his exact words, and I think the kid just walked away because he understood that meant that the staff member wasn't going to do anything about it.
Gotcha. And that's sad, because what about honesty? You should be able to be honest. And if a child is so afraid of repercussions about being bullied or beat, because they would probably beat him up too. I mean, it was all part of the package deal. Now the child's not going to be honest about who they really are, and that's sad. And isn't honesty Christian? To be a Christian, shouldn't you strive to be honest? And
yeah.
And if you're oppressing someone like that, and they're not being honest, they're not being their true selves. And what else did you witness in this place? Were you ever beaten? I know you talked about it at the rally.
Hi, I'm Jenna McToon, and when I was a 14-year-old child at Agape Boarding School in 2012 to 2013, one of the adult, fully grown, honestly really big guy staff members, I was trying to hurt myself, and so I got restrained, which is actually a euphemism for hurting somebody on purpose. So one of the really big staff members, he grabbed me and he put me on my stomach, and he sat on top of my back. He put his hand on the back of my head, and he curled his fingers around my head, and he picked my head up, and he smashed my face into the floor. And so then there was blood and snot all over the floor. I peed myself, and I was holding my head up out of the blood and snot, and I was begging him to not hurt me again. I was basically saying, like, please don't smash my face into a floor again, please don't hurt me again, please don't do it again. And he said, stop. And I said, stop what? And he said, stop talking. So I think that he was saying, like, he was trying to get me to stop talking, like, because I was saying stuff about him smashing my face. Like, he didn't want the other students in the other hallway to hear me, I guess. But anyway, so I stopped talking, and he puts his hand on the top of my head, and he turns my head to the side, and he pushes my head down to where the side of my face is laying in the pool of snot and blood. And also, when my face hit the ground, my teeth got hit. I think the only reason I didn't lose teeth is because I had braces, but my braces were really messed up, and they took a really long time to take me to the doctor, because you have to earn going to the doctor with like being the right shirt color. But anyway, so yeah, more staff came, and they took me into the next room, and they held me down for a few minutes, and then eventually they let me up. And the dean of students, he screamed in my face. He screamed in my face in such a loud and threatening way that it elicited some like a physical fear response, that would not normally happen unless I was extremely scared. And so anyway, after that, they took me back out in the hallway, and they had me wipe up my snot and blood that was on there as a result of them smashing my face into a floor. And then they and while I was doing that, I was saying, like, that was unnecessary, that was excessive, they didn't need to smash my face into a floor, they didn't need to break my nose. And one of the staff members actually said to me, okay, so I had, like, marks on my arm from cutting myself, like scars, and he said to me, look at what you did to your arms, and you're complaining about what we did to your nose? As if he was, like, kind of saying that, like, because I cut myself before, that it didn't make sense for me to complain about them, about an adult staff member smashing my face into a floor and breaking my nose. Which was really messed up, because, like, my parents sent me there, like, largely for me to deal with, like, emotional problems with, like, causing me to, like, cut myself. And one of the staff members ended up telling me that because I cut myself, that it gives that I can't, that I don't have, that I can't, that it doesn't make sense for me to complain about people physically abusing me, which is completely insane. And they all got away with it. Everybody that did it got away with it. The school is still open, and that's why I'm breaking code silence.
When could you write your parents? Did you want to write your parents? Could you have visitors anytime you wanted? Could you have weekend visits with anybody else other than your parents? What was visiting?
I didn't have a visit until 4 months later. I didn't get a phone call for 30 days. And my first couple of letters after I was physically abused, I sent a letter to my parents that said that my nose was broken during the restraint. And I got my next letter back from my parents, and I wasn't sure if they were going to acknowledge that or not. And when I read the letter, I think I expected them to, and then I read the letter, and they didn't acknowledge what I said about my nose being broken at all. So
it made it to your parents. It probably made it to the trash can.
No, it did, because my parents, no, they would, like, if they didn't send your letter out, they would flag it and hand it back to you.
Okay.
But my parents, they responded to things that I said in the letter.
Okay. But they didn't respond to that.
Yeah, they didn't respond to that part.
Did they think that was okay?
I know. I think that they just, like, overlooked it. I don't know.
How do you overlook that? I'm sorry. I know. Parents, but
my parents wouldn't show me my letters when they told me they kept all my letters, but when we had like a family therapy session a couple years later, I was talking about this, and they wouldn't show me my letters. They wouldn't let me look at my letters to, like, show that they received that letter.
Wow. I'm wondering if they signed something that gave these people permission to physically restrain, to physically do something to you for corporal punishment.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at the contract, like, that parents use now, and like, it says restrained, but it says, like, the contract and the handbook, it says it's like a special, like, crisis intervention procedure, but that's not what they do.
Crisis intervention, give me a break. Did you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom?
It just depended on where you were and when you were. Like, if you were in the dining hall, like, there was a bathroom and we had to go, like, one at a time, which wasn't that big of a deal, but sometimes there was a line. And sometimes we would need, sometimes there would be enough of us that had to use the bathroom that we'd need a staff member to come and, like, go into the bathroom so that we could all go into the bathroom as, like, as like a group, like a bathroom run, and then in school there was like a bunch of bathroom stalls, and you had to like get on the list and like be on like a waiting list, and that worked pretty well most of the time, and then
Really bad, and you're on this waiting list. Did they make an exception?
you're just screwed.
You what?
You just got to deal with it.
Oh my goodness, that's awful. What about in the middle of the night? Let's say in the middle of the night, could you get off your bed and go to the bathroom?
Yeah, in the middle of the night you could. For the first 2 hours on the dorm, you have to for the first 2 hours on the dorm, if you use the bathroom, you have to wake up early the next day and stand on the pole like 30 minutes early. But and after that, after the first 2 hours, when the light comes on that signals it, you can use the bathroom without penalty.
Why are there penalties for using the bathroom? That's ridiculous.
At all. Yeah, I know.
You should not have penalize a child to go and do a normal bodily function.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's why I'm asking these questions. That's absurd. What about medical attention? You said they broke your nose. They broke your nose. Staff or a student or both?
The staff did.
The staff did.
Yeah, a staff member did. And
medical neglect? Did they take you to the doctor?
no, my braces were messed up, and they did not take me to the doctor. I said something about it. I even asked to go to the doctor and said my braces are messed up, and I even remember I said, what am I supposed to do about my braces? And the same staff member that said something else awful to me said pray about it. The same staff member that said when I asked him what am I supposed to do about my braces, he said pray about it. That was the same staff member that told me that he said look at what you did to your arms, and you're complaining about what we did to your nose.
I'm assuming trying to commit suicide.
Previously in my past, I cut myself. That it was okay for them to smash my face into a floor, basically.
I'm sorry.
What it said.
Were you a cutter?
Yeah. I had like cuts on my wrist.
Okay, and
That's part of the reason why I was sent there.
Okay, so let's just explain to the audience what a cutter means. And it's basically you're just trying to deal with pain, and that's how you're dealing with emotional pain.
Yeah, when I said I was having emotional problems earlier, that's like an unhealthy way that I was dealing with it at the time. Like, yeah, back then.
This place is supposed to be a therapeutic place to help you so you can stop cutting. Now they're justifying beating you up, and then
Yeah. It didn't make any sense.
This is okay. You know, we can beat you up.
Yeah, and in the next couple of minutes, the same staff member told me pray about it when I asked him what I'm supposed to do about my braces. It was the same exact guy, and that was the guy that was responsible for making the appointments and stuff.
Were you a Christian before this place? I just want to get an idea.
No, hang on.
Okay.
My dad grew up Baptist, and my mom grew up with some exposure to like Protestant Christianity, and then when I grew up, we went to church some, but not really.
Okay.
Very much, and
It's in a church at all? It was it more like a feel good church, or was it fire and brimstone? What was it like in your church? It wasn't people bullying other people and persecuting, or was it?
No, it was like a normal church. It was like not like Agape at all. So, and it was actually we didn't really go to an independent fundamentalist Baptist church. We just went to a few different Protestant churches, just whatever was convenient, because we only went for a couple times a year. And but my dad grew up Baptist, so I guess that's why they sent me to a Baptist place.
Well, they just heard the name Baptist and they didn't really do their research on, I mean, different denominations, it doesn't matter what denomination it is. It's basically ran by monsters. So, it's unfortunate that they're taking on the flag of Christianity and they're just nothing of the sort. So now you're associating child abuse with Christianity, which is horrifying. Do you feel that before you didn't have any flashes to darkness in this place, and now with this place, you're thinking more like God's demonic? I mean, I'm just talking from my experience. It's almost like they made God into a demon. And
yeah, so I stopped kind of believing in God when I was like 12 or like 13. So when I got sent to the school, like when I was 14, I didn't believe in God. And I guess I started to at the school because they tell you the same thing over and over again every day, and like make it to where you don't have any other information. And then after I left the school, after about 6 months, I was back to not really being religious at all.
And I could see that. I mean, they really painted such a negative image of Christianity. Was there forced doctrine at this place? Could you make a decision? Could you be a free agent? Because Christianity is about free will. So were you able to pick and choose what you wanted to be? If you didn't want to believe, if you wanted to believe, if you wanted to be Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, did you have a choice?
No, not at all. You couldn't have any kind of materials of like a different religion other than not only other than Christianity, but other than like Baptist, the Baptist denomination. And like you had to go to chapel, and you had to go to church and to like prayer group. In prayer group one time, when shortly after I came there, I was in my prayer group, and the staff member and my guide were telling me to pray, and this was in like my first few days there, and I kept telling them like, no, I don't want to pray, I don't really pray, I don't really believe in any of that stuff. And they basically like just kind of like went back and forth with me until I finally prayed. And they made you like look at the Bible for Bible reading. So they made you like bow your head and close your eyes, and like you had to read the Psalms before meals. So
did you have to memorize verses? And if you didn't memorize it, were you punished for it?
In school, okay, so when you first show up as an orange shirt, you have to memorize the books of the Bible and some various stuff, some verses and stuff like that. Yeah, at the beginning. And then you have to do that in school ongoing. But we didn't really have to do that outside of school unless you were on the Do Right Club, which is just like it was just a thing where you memorize Bible verses every day, and like it just helps you like get rank and like be trusted. And like you get like a milkshake every now and then or something.
What astounds me is you'll have these different color shirts, and then the higher, would you say orange shirt is at the beginning?
Yeah, you start at orange, and then it was yellow, burgundy, and then above burgundy was captain, and below orange was brown. And they changed it later on to where they added gray. But that's just like yellow has a guide and gray doesn't have a guide. but before there was gray, it was just like yellow could be with a guide or yellow without a guide.
So it's just amazing to me that you could memorize Bible verses and climb up the hierarchy level, right? And then if you are hateful to somebody who is gay, you're rewarded. And you go up this Christian hierarchy level, which is disgusting because now they're encouraging hate and bullying to other children. And it's sad. Basically, they're having children do all their dirty work for them because they are really the abusers. Could you tell me, speaking of work, did you have to do hard labor? And if you did you get paid for it?
Yeah, we had to do hard labor. I remember the most exploitative labor that we had to do was we had to pull thistles, which was like a yearly project that had to be done because the animals in the pasture will eat them. They're just really like thorny and thick, and a lot of people had gloves that were sent by their parents, and my gloves that were sent by my parents that were made of leather, they were not thick enough to keep the thorns from going through the gloves.
Oh.
The thorns just went through the gloves, and I didn't have the thorns went through my gloves, and my gloves were kind of nice. And there were a lot of kids who didn't have gloves, and they had to use gloves given by the school. And the gloves given by the school were like they were too thin. They were like the thorns were going through my gloves, and mine were good, and the ones given by the school were like not very good. So a lot of people were using those, and it was just a lot of work. It was exploitative. The only time I was ever in that pasture was to work, and we just did like a lot of rock hauling. Rock hauling was kind of mostly pointless labor, I think, or maybe it did have a point. I don't know. I still don't know. Like maybe they needed us to move the rocks for some reason, but we would just like pick up rocks from the ground and make piles, and we would also move rocks from pile to pile. And in Browntown, one time we washed the owner's RV, and one time we picked up rocks that were like the size of our stomach, and we carried the rocks the size of our stomach, like from one side of the campus to the other, like a mile and a half or so, or like a mile, and then we stood in a circle, and there was like 7 of us, and one of us put the rock down, and then we like passed the rock we passed the 6 rocks in a circle of 7 of us, like around and around, just like passing the rocks from person to person. And then that was right before they made us compete against each other for water, which is when in Browntown, like that same day, right after the rock thing, there was like a hill, and they made us like run up and down the hill, and the first one to finish down the hill was the one that got to drink water. And I think they gave everybody water, but still they made us like compete against each other like that.
So you weren't getting any money for this? You have
no, and there was other work that was better. There was better work that you could do if you were like a higher shirt color, and like there was work that they gave us like a vocational credit in school, but the schooling is like unaccredited. It like doesn't really mean much because your home school doesn't have to take it. And like in Alabama, like I didn't need a wood shop credit, so it didn't do me any good to get a vocational work credit, and especially one that was like unaccredited. But anyway, there was the better work though was still like exploitative, because it was still work like around the property that like the staff members lived on, like mowing the staff members' yards and like painting the staff members' houses.
Could you get water in between this? You had mentioned that you were competing for water, but it sounds like after you did all this hard labor, then you would run to compete for water. In the middle of a project, could you go get some water?
They would do like well, like for the rock hauling work crews, they would do like water runs and
Water run. So now you're running to go get water, which kind of defeats the purpose because now you're going to exhaust yourself going to get water, which there's nothing wrong with exercise. But why wouldn't they just give the boys water outside while they're working instead of going all the way clear across wherever to go get water and then come back?
yeah, they were just making us run to like make us do it. Like they had the hose right next to them. They were just making us run up and down the hill to like torture us, to like make us like compete against each other to be like the next one to get to drink out of the hose. But like on these work crews, they would do like a water run and they would have like a bunch of people line up by like the hose, and they would give like so that people couldn't like take like a long time like drinking and like standing in line. They would like limit the number of people in line. And like when you drank from the water, they would count to 3, and they would be like 1, 2, 3. So you would just have to try to drink like as much water as you could in like 30 seconds.
That's awful. So no pay. You have bloody hands from working with the thorns, right? No medical attention. Did anyone get like cuts enough where you would think that they would need stitches? I mean, this sounds awful.
No, I don't think so. It just really sucked. And like, yeah, it definitely poked your hands. Like, it probably made some people bleed. I probably bled from it. They were really bad, like really thick thorns, like, you know, like rose thorns, like how they're really hard. Yeah, like thistles have really mean thorns.
That's just awful. How long were you on buddy for, where you had a guide and you had to follow them around and no privacy, right? I mean, they even went to the bathroom with you. Is that correct? Everywhere you went?
Yeah, the rule was you had to stay within 3 feet of them. But, like, most of the time it was really, like, 10 feet. And, but, like, 3 feet if they said so. And, like, I don't know. It was like having the worst bully ever. But, like your bed's next to them and your closet's next to them, so you can't get away from them. And, like, I wrote my parents and told them about how, like, my guide was, like, making things really difficult for me. And they just told me to stick it out. And I felt like I remember that was the first time that I felt like my parents, like, couldn't really do anything to help me, like, with what was going on there. Because I knew that my parents weren't going to be there for, like, 4 months. Like, I tried to talk about the issue of my guide with my parents, but, like, they couldn't do anything because, like, they weren't there. Like, so I was like, I felt like I was on my own.
I feel like the buddy system was equivalent to being on a dog leash.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was very much like that.
You want to explain the bathroom too? I don't know what your situation was in the bathroom. Did they watch you go to the bathroom? I want to know if it was degrading by having this buddy. Was there stalls with doors on them? Were they no doors?
If you went into a stall, you were by yourself. You didn't have to like be in there with your guide.
Okay, well that's good. Sorry, I'm just asking these questions.
No, it's okay.
The Circle of Hope didn't have any stall doors on
really?
it. It was very degrading. That's why I'm asking you all these questions. What about toilet paper? I mean, at the Circle of Hope, they had like 3 squares of toilet paper. Anything like that, or no? There was no cutoff toilet paper.
No, we could use. We were in there by ourselves, so we could use toilet paper. But like, if you got caught using like a bunch of it, you would get in trouble. And like, sometimes they would like they would get really like they would chastise like the student body as a whole for like using too many paper towels or toilet paper or something, and like they did that with like paper towels, like made a limit on paper towels, and they like there was too many of us for them to do something like a limit on toilet paper.
And the other thing is, but what if you're sick? You know, they don't seem to care if someone is sick. They're not even taking that into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anytime they had a rule, they
never
like cared about like individual considerations.
Would you say they were just looking for an excuse to punish children in this place? Yes?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the staff were a lot of the staff were sadistic. I mean, a lot of the staff were just uneducated, like straight out of Bible college. But a lot of the staff were just like uneducated, like people like just in the IFB community. And then there were a lot of former students, and those were like the lower level staff. And then there was like the administrators and stuff. The administrators and stuff, I think that they know about all of the details, like of the industry, like how I like to read about. But and I think that the upper level people are kind of manipulating the lower level staff, and I think that there's certain rules that are fundamentally abusive, and they create an environment that's fundamentally abusive, to where they desensitize staff members, like new staff members, to what they do to people, and like to slowly get them used to it. And so I think, and some of the staff members were nicer than others. So I would say, yeah, some of the staff did seem like they were just looking to punish people, like in a sadistic way, or like they enjoyed it when they had the opportunity, and a lot of them, some of them didn't too.
Even if you had a nice staff member, it doesn't matter. If you are staff and you witness other staff torturing children, it's your obligation and your duty to report it. Otherwise, you're just as guilty.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this stuff that these places do is like fundamentally wrong, like how they force kids into there without due process, and then make it to where like the kids can't like call anybody on the phone, like the police or CPS or like their parents or anything like that, and like monitor their communication.
Speaking of which, did you ever make a police report?
No, I feel like I shouldn't even bother like with the sheriff's department there, like, cause you saw how like you remember how the sheriff's deputy like rolled up into Agape, and like there's several sheriff's deputies that have worked for Agape.
I'm wondering if it's terrible, because I'm assuming you have to report in that jurisdiction. But what if that jurisdiction is corrupt? Then what? Can you go to another jurisdiction?
I I don't even know how you would even begin to prove that it's corrupt. Like I don't know how you'd be able to like prove it. I don't know what the process for doing that is, or like how you would prove it enough to be able to do that. But like I know that in their contract also they say that all of any kind of dispute should be settled in the Cedar County court in Missouri.
I'm wondering how many police reports have been made on this place. I know there were numerous reports on the Circle of Hope, but I'm just curious how many reports on Agape. And they really need more students that have just been there recently, because of the statute of limitations.
Yeah. Yeah, we need more recent students to speak out and make like reports to Child Protective Services. Like it's also hard because like not all survivors want to speak out.
Right, they're scared, or they're in the brainwashed mode, and we'll talk about the brainwashing too. Did you ever get to a point? I know I was brainwashed, thinking to myself, these people are nuts, and then towards the end, I became brainwashed. I knew what they were doing was wrong, but I was brainwashed because I was going to the beat of the drum of the program, to the point where my thought process wasn't my own anymore. In other words, if I thought a certain thing, I would feel guilty about it. And I would just suppress a lot. So, did you feel brainwashed at all after this? Or afraid to speak up and make a report? What was going through your mind after?
Yeah, I did feel brainwashed. Like after like the Saturday after that, I was injured by the staff member at breakfast. He like sat down and like had breakfast with me, and that was actually kind of confusing for me, cause I didn't I don't know, that was just confusing, like, why was he being all nice to me, and also I wasn't comfortable with, like, sitting there, like, having breakfast and, like, being buddy-buddy with him because of what had happened, like, just the other day.
Right.
Like, and I felt like it was, almost on purpose, like, to, like, smooth things over with me.
Right.
After he did that to me.
Tell everyone that he's just the Christian man.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, and like just in general with the program, like being there every day, like you get sucked into it, and like I felt like the environment, like if you express like opinions that were different from what the program requires, then like other people in the program will they'll just like constantly talk to you about it and like argue with you about it to like correct your way of thinking. And then eventually, I actually, before I left, I almost asked my parents if they would let me stay there. And I know, I know, for me to get my captains, and like I almost did, but I didn't do it. And they let me come home, and
I think you just described Stockholm Syndrome right there.
Yeah. And well, really, like, I think it was institutionalization. Like, just like when you're in a place like that, and you just get so used to it that you're not comfortable with the outside world.
Right.
And because I had a really hard time adjusting when I got home.
I think if they just give you just a little bit of love, right? Just a little bit of love.
Yeah.
Then you're confused.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's what's going on. But what they did was clearly wrong. Clearly wrong. You do not do that to a child. And I really believe you had Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah. And did you have an identity crisis as well? Because they suppress your feelings.
Yeah. When I came home, it took me like several months it took me about 6 months to really to shake off like a lot of the mentality, because like it really stuck with me at first. I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but it was like in 6 months I got really I made a lot of progress, like kind of deprogramming, but it was a process that ultimately took years. And I have a lot of feelings about like me before and after boarding school. Like I feel like there's like a split in my life.
Did you feel like your life was taken from you from that? How long were you locked up in this place anyway?
A year. Yeah, I feel like my life was taken away from me for that year. I feel like my life was radically changed by it before and after, and that I was changed by it.
Did you feel like you were on pause? Like everybody was moving forward and you were standing still? Stuck?
Yeah, something very much like that.
Were you allowed to watch TV, newspaper, books? Any books that you wanted to read? Were you limited on what you could read and what you can watch? Were you allowed to watch?
Books had to be sent there by your parents, and they had to be donated to the library, and they had to like review the book and decide whether or not it would be allowed. And they showed us movies, but they were like super extremely strict about what they would show us. And yeah, that was it. And there was like 24/7 supervision, so you couldn't like sneak and watch something.
Okay. So movies once a week? Every day? What?
Oh, it was like, okay, so free time was like Friday nights for like 3 hours, and like Saturdays for like 4 hours, and Sundays for like 4 hours.
Okay. And then usually, were you writing demerits? Did you have demerits where you would have to write sentences on pretty much reprogramming yourself to think negative about yourself?
Yeah, they used writing as a punishment, except it was either packets. Packets was like if you got in trouble in school, and you would have to like copy stuff like multiplication tables, and then there was creeds, and creeds was like if you got in trouble for like dress code or like your closet was not neat, then you would get creeds, and creeds was like you had to write sentences over and over again, like you had to write the dress code basically over and over again.
Okay, dress code. What did that look like? Some of them were saying that they had used clothes. They took all their street clothes away, so anything that they came with to the camp was removed, and then they were given old clothes. What was the dress code like?
Yeah, we had like khakis and polos given by the school, and we would wear like a white shirt under the polo, and that was our school uniform. And then we had work uniforms, and that was jeans and a t-shirt and a baseball cap.
Were you working every day?
No, it was during the school year. We had work. We had school 5 days a week, and you could get pulled out of school to go to work. And some people would do that more than others. And then there was on Saturdays we would work during the morning from like 9 to 1 or something like that, and have free time like 2 to 5 or something. I don't know, something like that. And during the summer we would have work like 3 to 4 days a week in school the other days of the week. So at most it was during the summer, like 3 or 4 days a week during the summer.
Would you say school was 4 hours a day, or how long was school in a day?
So every day was like we would wake up and we'd have Bible reading, and then we would do breakfast, and then we'd do prayer groups, and then we'd do chore crews, and then we would do school, and that was that was probably at like 9 a.m. I think, until like, I don't know, it was either like 8:30 or 9, and then we would go to school until like 12, and then lunch wouldn't take long, like only like an hour at most. I don't think it would take an hour, like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then we would go back to school until like 3 o'clock. So like 6 hours or something like that.
Okay. But you're saying that none of it was credited. You couldn't just transfer the.
Well, yeah, your parents could pay to get it accredited, and for it to be accredited, that just meant that they shipped it to another school for the other school to grade it. Like, if your parents didn't pay to get it accredited, then no, it was not accredited, and it was like up to your home school whether or not they would take it. But my parents paid to get it accredited, and what that means is just like that they would ship all of your packets of work to another school, and the other school would grade it because the other school was accredited.
So they actually had to pay to get it accredited. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they paid, and they got some of it accredited, but there was a misunderstanding with the school to where a lot of the work didn't get accredited, and I had to take tests when I got home.
Terrible. And could you tell me how much the average student it costs for tuition at this place?
Average tuition?
Right.
It's like when I went, it was like 33,000 or something like that, 35, something like that.
35,000 for the whole time.
Something like that.
Year.
Huh?
For a year?
Yeah.
Wow, they could have got a brand new car for that. A really nice one too. That's awful. And to abuse children for $35,000, and this place is still open today. Could you tell me what was the worst case scenario that you personally experienced at this place, Jenna?
That was the physical abuse.
Did you witness anybody else being tortured? What were?
Yeah. There was on the dorm one time. There was this kid was sitting on his bed, and he had like a hand on his hip and a hand on his knee, and the staff were giving him push-ups, and he was saying no, and he was just like calmly saying no, and then the staff member called over two other staff members by name, and then they came over there, and then they yanked him off his bed and put him on the ground on his stomach, and they took like his arm behind his back, and I could hear the kid scream. He was like, stop, please, you're hurting my arm. And there was like a nighttime staff member that was walking by my bed, and he said, everybody should be looking at the wall. So the staff member told us to look at the wall so that we weren't looking at the person getting restrained.
And let's just tell the audience about how these push-ups work. These aren't like 10, 20 push-ups. We're talking thousands of push-ups, according to one of the interviews that I heard from the Hammer podcast. Do you want to talk about those push-ups?
Okay, so push-ups, like, most of the time it was just 10 or 20, and jumping jacks too, but it was like when you got into like boot camp punishment, that was when they would really kick your ass with
that's what it was. How do you get into boot camp punishment?
Like Browntown, like how when I was telling you earlier, like how we had to carry the rocks.
Right.
That's I don't know, like just anything bad enough, really, like that's yeah.
For getting a pencil or something. I mean, these people are crazy.
Yeah, like no, like more serious things, like more serious than like talking, more serious than like goofing off, like something bad. I don't know, like getting into a fight, or I don't know, sleeping in church. I don't know, something like that. Running away. But like stuff that's not as serious as running away too. Like,
have you ever witnessed anybody running away?
Yeah, one time when I was in Browntown. we were walking inside of the building, and right as we were about to walk back in, they were behind the staff member for a second, and they just ran.
Did they catch them? What happened?
No, the staff member didn't notice until they were like 50 or 60 feet away.
So did they get away?
Yeah, they got away for like 2 or 3 hours.
Oh,
and
wow.
then they got brought back.
Oh, no. And so what happened next? Did they make their life a living hell, or?
Yeah, they put them in scrubs, and they were in Browntown. They just had to be in boot camp for a long time and have like bad guides.
Isolation?
No, not usually for running away. They would use isolation for like refusing.
Refusing.
Like refusing push-ups or refusing to do anything. And the way that they would use it is they would just like, you would be down there for from like 5:30 to like 10 o'clock at night, and then you would sleep on the floor when they let you sleep, and then they would just like handle you rough when they take you out to use the bathroom, and they would force you to hold stress positions, like holding your fingertips to the wall and like stand there facing the wall, and also just like you weren't allowed to sleep or lay down, and so it was like a sensory deprivation, isolation type thing.
Do you want to describe the wall to the audience?
I mean, the wall is like, you stand there, like if you get caught talking during a meal, or like if you do something bad, like you might be on the wall for like a long time, like a really long time sometimes.
During a meal. They should not have kids quiet during mealtime.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
First of all, kids should be able to speak. They should be practicing communication. These are teenagers. Stopping them from talking. You're stopping them from having an identity, and you're shoving who they are down a rabbit hole. It's really pathetic. I mean, if you listen to yourself talk, you're saying, well, they could get punished for talking, during mealtime. Well, this isn't normal. But that's what I'm talking about. These kids are brainwashed, and even you, after a while, and myself, you start becoming accustomed to this. And do you ever, we've seen it time and time again where we've seen other survivors that have drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and they will say, well, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. This is where I found God, and because of this place, I'm off drugs. Yes, maybe you're off drugs, but it was highly abusive, and you're not acknowledging it. Do you want to talk about that kind of brainwashing? Because some of the audience will, just hear one person say, well, it wasn't so bad. And so now they'll think, oh, well, this person's saying it wasn't so bad. But then you have 50 people that are saying this was the worst place in hell.
I would say that different people had different experiences, and then also brainwashing is part of it. Like when I first got out, I would have been like kind of apologetic for a lot of the things that they did to me while I was there, and I would have maybe credited them for some things, but I think part of that reason why is because while you're there, they tell you that you would end up like dead or in jail if you didn't have them, and like you're a manipulator, and like you're not gonna make it out there. So when you do, it's like it's easy for people around me, like my parents. Like my parents told me that like they would credit some successes that I had with, like they would credit Agape with those successes, and
or that was in the past,
like a long time ago.
Okay.
And so a lot of people around me were telling me, that it helped me, and it changed everything for me, and I needed it. So I would have been like apologetic for the place a long time ago. But another thing is, like, some people just had different experiences. Like, some people didn't get in trouble like at all there, and like leveled up, and like got to go off campus a lot, and like maybe do some fun stuff. But still, like, everybody was psychologically and emotionally abused.
Sure.
And like really, like, just like the way that the program is designed, to where like you have to earn basic needs through the level system, like access to like appropriate shoes, and like talking. Like you have to level up just to be able to talk, and like the forced labor. So a lot of what these people do, like we focus a lot on like sexual abuse and restraints and stuff, and we should, because that's like the worst stuff that's going on. But there's a lot of bad stuff that these people do that's like not physical. That's just like with the conditions and how they deny the kids their basic rights.
Right. And spiritual abuse too.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you felt like God hated you after a sermon.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like, it didn't make me feel like God loves me at all.
Oh, that's really, really sad. It's really sad how these, I'm assuming there was a preacher there that was running the school. Is that correct? Or no? Was there a preacher?
It was like, so it's ran by the owners. It like the and their house is attached to the school, and so they've just been running it forever. And we almost never interacted with the. So it was mostly just the staff running it.
Okay, but they were the behind the scenes.
Yeah, and we saw them around, but we never really interacted with them.
Did they preach?
Yeah, the staff members would preach, and there would be evangelists that preached, and then there was also the preacher would preach. He was a different person. He was just a preacher that preached there.
Got it.
He was the pastor of the church that the community went to, because we would go to church with the community and the girls' school on Sundays.
And when you're referring to the girls' school, is Circle of Hope?
Refuge of Grace.
Refuge of Grace, which is Wings of Faith.
Wings of Faith, yeah.
Okay.
And that was where the Mountain Park survivors were brought after they closed Mountain Park.
Exactly.
They brought to Refuge of Grace and Agape, yeah.
I was just interviewing Amy, and she's a survivor of Mountain Park, and also Amanda. And Amy had said she was at Agape for 2 weeks as a holding until she was able to go to the Refuge and then Wings of Faith. Refuge of Grace, and then it turned into Wings of Faith.
In holding, you said?
Amy was at Agape.
At the boys' school?
Yes, she was actually at Agape.
How did she describe that?
She said that she was in a place with one of the owners, and they thought it was amusing that she was so excited about TV, because she wasn't allowed to have TV. They were the ones that were telling her she couldn't watch TV or the radio or the newspaper. What did they expect? These people are crazy. But she said that it was pretty decent being at Agape, meaning because she was in with the owners. So I don't really think she saw too much, obviously, because if she did.
I see. She was like around all the main stuff.
Yeah, she was just there to hold until she got into the Refuge of Grace. Right. Which, Refuge of Grace, what's up with these names? Unconditional Love, Agape, it's nothing of the sort. And Wings of Faith, you mean Wings of Hell. These places, and Wings of Faith is still open today. Is that correct? It's still open today. It's just
Yeah, I think so.
We should have been protesting over there too, but
It was right down the road.
I heard there are a bunch of radicals over there. It could have gotten ugly. That's what Amy was saying. And then, do you want to talk about the protesting and how the one car was like backing up, didn't want to pass us, and we had signs out that said they're torturing our children, and I'm assuming it was parents coming to visit their kids, some of them, because it was Sunday, and sometimes they would have parent-student visits.
Yeah, it looked like, it was Parents Week. It looked like there was a local community member that almost hit us with his truck. He kind of pulled out in a way that was like really aggressive, like he knew that he would just give like just enough time to get out of the way.
Trying to scare all of us.
Yeah.
It's really sad about how they just feel that they're not doing anything wrong, and they just whizzed right past us without a care in the world. I just feel that these people think they're untouchable. They're untouchable to the law. It's almost like a joke. And it's not a joke. These people are abusing our children, and America just turns a blind eye. And I don't care if, yes, I believe in religious liberties, fine, but we didn't tell you to abuse our children. I say this time and time again. And whether it's religious, non-religious, licensed, unlicensed, you do not abuse children, period. And yet there's over 100,000 across this nation. Schools just like the one that Jenna survived. And it's sad. And we are just trying our hardest to expose these places by having interviews, by protesting, by having rallies. We had City Star, at the rally, and how did that make you feel, speaking at the rally? That's the first time you spoke, right? At a rally.
I've spoke about it before, but that was the time that I enjoyed it the most, because that was the time that I felt most comfortable, and I was glad that the media was there.
Did you feel that you had a lot of support?
There was a few different groups. Yeah, I'm glad that there was a lot of exposure and there were supporters there, like from the local town. So it's just nice to be around a lot of survivors and a lot of supporters.
How are you feeling about, it's one thing if the school goes belly up because parents finally make the right decision and pull their kids out and finally take heed in what we're saying. How do you feel about these people just not being prosecuted? Do you think that Agape has a chance, the owners have a chance at being prosecuted? What is your opinion, or can you even make a statement right now because of all the legalities?
I think they should be, but I think that there's a good chance that they're going to get away with it, because they're going to try, the administration is going to try to blame the lower level staff members, but I think the administration know what they're doing, because the contract is very incriminating, and also they know, just because they've had to deal with years of there have been parents that have gotten suspicious before, and they've been sued before. And also, they just have a lot of rules that are in place to prevent parents from finding out about abuse, like the reading of their letters and the monitoring of the phone calls.
Have you witnessed anybody being sexually abused? Have you been sexually abused in this place?
No, I didn't witness that directly.
You didn't witness anything directly?
I didn't witness that directly.
Okay.
Oh yeah, but I was talking to the admissions director, and on Facebook, and he was his wife sexually assaulted a student that I was in the program with, and his wife was when I was talking about it with him, he knew about it, that it happened, and he said himself that he thought that it probably happened other times too.
That's crazy. It's just amazing how these people just feel like they can get away with everything and they have more power over these children and over society. I feel that the only way that we're going to get things done is by making these videos, by making them go viral, because there's power in numbers. I just don't feel protected at all by our police department, CPS, our politicians. Although Senator Gelser that I spoke about has really changed my heart on that, and she's very thorough in Oregon. And I sat in on a Zoom conference, and I was very impressed with how thorough she is, and how they just can't leave a state and start all over again and run or take it out of the state.
Because that's what they always do, just rename the place and move it.
Right. And if we can just make that federal, that would be amazing. Is there anything else that you want to discuss, that you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about how's your relationships been after this program?
I'm doing okay with, it really hurt my relationship with my parents, but I've mostly been able to, form friendships just fine.
Jenna, thank you so much for being on the show, Pieces of Victory. It is always a pleasure to speak with you, and I so appreciate you being brave enough to tell your story about what really happens behind these closed doors in residential programs. This is an epidemic that's happening in our country, and I thank you, Jenna, for telling your piece of the story so we can get these places closed down. If you have a 1% chance that this could happen to your child, why would you even take that risk? My name is Janine Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory.
This was at Agape, yeah. And so very mentally controlling like that. Agape was a little better education, but a lot of, same thing with work crews. Discipline was very high, no talking, no social interaction whatsoever, unmonitored.
So you were at Agape Boarding School from, looks like 99 to 2001.
But they keep preaching about how they cared about us and as the students. But then I think my mom didn't pay or forgot or something happened, whether she just chose not to pay, I don't know. But for a few months they had not paid. And they were coming to me to call my mom to tell her to pay. But preaching to us that they're not in it for the money.
Yeah.
And that was my kind of thing that started me turning on Agape. I was already frustrated with not seeing your family, not having birthday parties, not having Christmases or Thanksgivings at home. Those things were really emotionally tolling. So that part of it was, and then not being able to have actual social or any aspect of outside world, like no TV, no newspapers, no music, no nothing. But once the money aspect came of it, I was like, these guys are hypocrites. They don't care about us. They don't care about anything. It's money. It's money for them.
If you think about it, we didn't have no freedom, no rights. We had to do what we were told, which as a kid you should do what you're told anyways, right? But
Yeah.
you should be allowed to free think
Sure.
and have an opinion, even if it doesn't matter. You should still have one. We were locked in, magnetic door locks, So you couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. If you questioned it, you either got some type of punishment, or if they didn't like it, they just decided they were going to hit me up all the time. So it pretty much was a sentence, right?
Pretty much.
They would bring inmates in. Not all the time, but I think 2 times this happened. They brought inmates in a prison in Missouri, up kind of closer by St. Louis, and those guys, had more freedom than we did, and they were convicted. Free labor. You needed a project done. You had 175 students to go pick from.
Yep, you didn't have to hire a contractor. You just get the kids out there to do it. Yeah.
They were captains of red shirts. Had a red shirt, and then I guess my buddy, I didn't make it out the door. Brian grabbed me and slammed me. So that was the first time. So I was 12, real small. After that, they restrained me or got control of me and made sure I wasn't going to do that again. So I didn't really have any issues the first time. I watched it happen all the time. I mean, the older boys, they would mouth off, boom, get elbowed right in the face or slammed, or it wasn't just him. It was several staff members would do this.
Right.
And they would encourage students to do it so the staff didn't have to get involved. Or we would go into what they called like a staff culture, which is like maximum security prison. You just can't lock us in a cell because you don't have them, right?
Yep.
So that, they...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so they encouraged the students to try to step in first so we didn't have to deal with it. And so we did. So students did step in a lot of times.
And of
The
course,
second time, though, man, good.
and they're not liable either. I mean, they'll just watch it and...
No, yeah, teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers. They'll get a slap on the wrist,
I was on no talking for like 9 months before he left, which I'm sure you've heard about no talking.
Oh, yeah.
Some of us stare at your Bible, kind of look around,
Yeah. When was the time that you first, or maybe the first incident where you were like, this is not just a place where they're trying to help people. There's something else here that's like not as positive and, maybe is a negative place.
I would say Agape. But that was because when we got to Agape, I was 11, and when we toured the property, they had this like room that was right next to the staff bathrooms. And actually, which is weird, the female bathroom connected to this room. So, like, we could go into this room. But this room was all padded and carpeted. Or not padded, it was just carpeted. So it had, like, the cheapest carpet you could think of on it. And I remember boys going up there and then coming back, and they were bloody. It wasn't just, like, bruises. They were, like, bloody. But we knew that as girls, we weren't supposed to be looking at the boys. So, like, it wasn't something you could, like, stare at or like get involved in.
We are here at Agape and someone is actually backing up because they don't want to deal with us. He's literally backing up. So we know there's staff trying to get into the school. But here we are right here. There's Agape. We have to get those kids out. Do you want to say something? Hi.
Thanks so much for coming. We hope that Elvin's friend gets taken out as soon as possible.